Hello and welcome to Season of War. We are officially live for tonight's show. Three of us here because we've unfortunately lost a member of the party. We split the group, so that's what happens sometimes. But tonight we're going to be talking about our upcoming event 2 days from now. Grots Gone GT in Welland, Ontario, so Southern Ontario, kind of the stomping ground of, a lot our team and a lot of other local teams. We got an amazing community out here, so excited for that. Going to be some good action. Just quick housekeeping things. Want to always say a big thank you to everyone for watching all of our shows. Especially big thank you to our premium members. You guys are the only reason why we're able to do any kind of content at all. And again, hoping to make this a long-term sustainable thing. Really up, with the support of our premium members, that's going to be possible, hopefully. So, anyways, talking about this weekend, we got it's Grots Gone Wild GT actually. Carl, Zach, the three of us are going to be going down. What do you think about the event overall? Any notes or comments about the event? It seems pretty standard.
I like that it's local.
Yeah.
For once. Don't have to drive super far to finally go to a local GT. Since I'm in the Hamilton region, it's a lot closer to me. I know Jord and Carl are a little bit more in the Toronto area, so a couple GTs down there aren't too bad. But yeah, personally for me, I'm just happy that it's finally a little bit closer.
You,
And sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, are you driving home at night? Don't have to go to a
Yep,
hotel? Yeah, nice.
yep, exactly.
Yeah, it's gonna also be based on who's going. One of the most competitive GTs, and I know Zach, you haven't really traveled too much to go to any big GTs, but I mean, you can prove your worth right now. If you win this one, it's as good as winning any other GT, any other large GT. I would say that
It's
this is probably
harder.
harder.
Yeah,
This is
100%.
probably harder. Your game 1 to your game 5 could be top end players, world's team level players. So if
Oh
you
yeah.
make it through the gauntlet of everybody, like if any of us do, whoever wins this is a true champion. So
So it
For
looks
sure. For sure.
like it's not a big GT. This is the first year that our buddy Josh, local TO, amazing guy. See him in the chat. Josh, you're the best. Thank you for running this. So first year of this event, and it's at the Mini Wargaming Hall. So it's not a huge venue. I think we're 26 players is the final number,
I think
barring
it's 28.
28 players,
28.
barring any
Yep.
last minute drops. So, but like you said, Carl, this is like there are probably like I think there were like 15 players that were in like the top, 50 ITC ranked players last year. For what that's worth. So a lot of people who go to a lot of events perform really well, and yeah, everyone's coming up for again. It's harder than I feel like it's going to be a tougher event than LVO because LVO you can straight by your first 3-4 matches even with how many people are there, and um, you know if you get a couple lucky matches at the end or matchups at the end, that's all you need. But this, yeah, like you said, Carl, from start to finish will be a wild event.
Bill does say it's world level players with bin level lists, but as we know, Bill does not play any bin level lists, and he's
No.
still dangerous whether he
well,
plays
well,
the worst army
yeah.
or the best army.
Bill finds a way to elevate them, and Bill is known as the Ghoul King, and he is playing Fleshier Court, so he is potentially more at home with this army than any other. So never know.
Yeah.
Lots to watch out for. But I guess just jumping into everything. Obviously, 5-round GT, 2 days over Saturday, Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty standard. Nothing too wild from the mission pack or anything like that. So, we have three categories of lists. We're not going through all the lists of the event, just picking out a few of our favorites that we liked for different reasons. We're going to start off with our flavor picks. So these lists are one reason or another lists we liked. We thought they were fun, cool, whatever. They could be competitive, could not be competitive, but yeah, our flavorful picks. So, Carl, do you want to kick us off with your first flavor pick?
Yeah, so before I jump into this list, I do want to say as a caveat that this pick does not mean that it's not a competitive list. I know there was a huge debacle that happened last time where I had to make a Twitter account, have an apology on video about a certain Dreadsorian. So I will say that my pick for flavor pick, Mr. Roger Barker, this is not a condemnation of your list as a non-competitive list. But I really, really like this list.
I'm legitimately scared of it. I wouldn't want to play it.
Yeah, so it has some tech pieces that make it very good. I will say as well, overall, in terms of the overall GT, a lot of people are taking lists that are not seen as top armies, just because everybody wanted to have fun. There was kind of like a soft memo.
All the
And
so there's a
so
bunch of Americans. The Yankees are coming up, and they're breeding the Wild West with them.
yeah, it's just crazy. But so I'll kind of the list is on the screen there, but it's basically a Khorne Demon Prince, uh, two big Bloodthirsters, one of them being Scarbrand, a Lord of Khorne on Juggernaut, which is the general, which unlocks the Mighty Skull Crushers as battle line, and then a Bloodsecrator, of course, because you can't have Khorne without a Bloodsecrator. So I think Roger's game plan here is to have a counter-charging army. Those Mighty Skull Crushers do mortals on the charge. The Khorne Demon Prince halving your charge means that it's more liable that you fail your charges and he gets in with his big combat elements. 10 drops means he gets to see where you place your things and he can potentially counter deploy. He wants to keep that Khorne Demon Prince alive as long as possible, and so he's going to try to keep it away from your shooting elements as much as possible. But it's going to be a hard list for a lot of armies to deal with, especially armies that don't have pluses to their charge or don't have shooting to take down the Khorne Demon Prince. You can't even sap the CP from him because the Crimson Crown means that he's just able to do that
free.
command for free. Yeah, so it's a very, very tight list. Khorne's not in a great spot right now. Reapers of Vengeance means those Bloodthirsters can fight twice, so Scarband is looking to just slay the world. And then the Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury just means that he can pile in 6 as well. So there's a lot of tech. Retreating, then piling in 6. Like, there's a lot of things that you could potentially do with this list. And in the hands of a good player like Roger, I'm interested to see what he can do with Khorne. Because next weekend, we're getting a update to them. So
Yeah.
this might be a preview of things to come.
It's interesting. It's funny. I joked at dinner like a couple of nights ago, or on the weekend after we had a one dayer. And I joked about taking Khorne because I just like wasn't excited about any potential army that I was thinking of. But he did it, and his Khorne list would smash my Khorne list. So I'm glad I didn't do it. I would embarrass myself.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong list. Not just in general, but specifically against melee as well. I think melee lists will have a hard time. That Khorne Demon Prince is just such a central piece. In any Slaves to Darkness army, and now obviously in Khorne as well. Just a super strong unit.
Any Chaos army that can take him.
Exactly.
pretty much.
Exactly. And as a predominantly melee player, I've definitely felt his impact. So yeah, great list.
Nice. All right, Zach, you want to talk about yours next?
Yes. So I picked a fellow destruction player by the name of Sean Murray. He is doing an Orc War Clans list as Cruel Boys. I really like this list because I enjoy that it is all Cruel Boy. You might see a list or two at the tournament that includes a Kragnos because he has become a very strong centerpiece in a lot of destruction armies. But I really like how it's formatted. Bolt Boys, 2 of them are obviously a great choice, 2 units of 6. Hobrat Slitas are awesome screens and also can pip out a little bit of damage if needed. Gobsprak, I love it as a flavor choice. He's probably not the strongest model on the board, but he's a great looking model, and he can do some really cool and fun things. One of my favorite is Mork Says No. So that's if you roll and unbind the roll, then you do D3 mortal wounds, and then I believe if the unbind roll is over 10, you do D6. So just a really, really fun list. And I think it also has some legs for sure. Cruel Boys is, I would say, a high skill ceiling army to perform well, and also has a high skill floor. But I'm excited to see what Sean can do with it. He's played a few tournaments before, and I think he can do well.
Nice. No.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting list, one that he's been running for quite some time. Gobsprak could potentially impact the game in a big way with the Mork Says No, as well as just having the ability. I know this says choking mist on Gobsprak, but he has access to all of it, and so you're able to cycle through any of the spells. And the Cruel Boy spell lore is one of the best. But
it's incredibly strong. I think it's pretty underrated in its strength, mainly because you use your Swamp Colors to obviously buff the
yeah,
mortal wounds on any of your other units instead of to actually cast spells.
and
But yeah, it's very good.
and it's deceptively fast as well with the Snatch a Boss, the Break a Boss with a fast stun, and the Kill a Boss on Great Gnashtooth. So he's much more balanced list than some of the other Cruel Boys lists that are in the tournament, mainly me and Danny. So it's a much more balanced approach to it.
Yeah, it is. I do like all the heroes that are in there too, right?
For sure.
Heroes and single entity units, like
chock
cool.
full of heroes.
It's the way I like it. Minimum model count and as many big boys as you can throw on the table. So
the Kill a Boss with a flaming weapon is really good as well, because you're able to, because of how the poison works on Cruel Boys, that +1 damage does affect the mortal wounds, which a lot of things doesn't allow you to increase that mortal wound output, and that thing is fast. So
Orc's Eye Pebble is also great into the shooting.
oh yeah,
There's going to be a decent amount of shooting. There's a decent amount of Stormcast coming. So being able to protect yourself against that and hit back potentially, as well as Covered in Mud, countering some of those is great.
if you can roll a 4 up.
If you can roll a 4 up. So if you aren't Carl, you'll be in a good spot with that. But yeah, the lack of Lumineth and the line of sight that it just sees right through is actually makes Covered in Mud so great. So
yep, for sure.
I think he can do pretty well, and I'm excited to see him play, and hopefully I'll get to play against him.
Sure. What is it keeps changing the list on screen for me.
Just
are you using PowerPoint?
List, I guess.
I'm not using PowerPoint actually. So I'm a little more high tech than that. But whenever I have like a weird key combination to like change the slide, and it's changing on me. But
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
I think that's a sign of things to come, that Roger's gonna maybe win this.
Yeah. Well,
foreshadowing.
As I mentioned before, we have the Dual King coming up to Toronto, or not Toronto specifically, but Southern Ontario, bringing his Flesh Eater Courts. I don't know what's more narrative than that in and of itself. So I had to choose Bill for my flavor pick here. Bill has like taken Flesh Eater Courts to great success in this edition where nobody else has. With a Mega Darkness that time, I don't know. There's definitely not a Slan Star Master in this list, so apologies on the graphic there. Unless Bill is just blatantly cheating, but I don't think he would try to do that. So
he just knows some secret tech that none of us saw, and he was able to find him in.
Probably a mistake. Who knows? Definitely a mistake on my part, though, if anybody. So yeah, Flesh Eaters, obviously not the big bad that they were 3 years ago. Yeah, 75 points for that slam too. Whatever it takes, Bill. Whatever it takes. But he's got the Abhorrent Archreach in general, Hellish Orator, Spectral Host, so making things fast with the spell, and 4 up CP with the general trait. The Dual King on Terror Dice has the Eye of Hish, which is actually a 6-inch aura of -1 to hit and shooting. So he can huddle around that at the start of the game with multiple units, but also that Dual King, wherever it goes, will be bringing that aura with it. So it will always be -1. So that's a nice little flavor piece to hopefully help keep the Dual King alive in this shooting meta that we're in. Obviously, gruesome bite, no real surprise there. And then for units, he's got 3 units of crypt flares, just min threes, and then 2 units of crypt horrors. 6 each in those, so those 2 units are reinforced. And he is playing Blister Skin, so the big thing with Blister Skin is adding +2 movement for the entire army, everything that's not allied in. I remember that Slan Star Master is the guy from supposed to be the guy from the
Gorslav.
Gorslav, that's it. So Gorslav, the Slan Star Master, is allied in, as well as a unit of 40 Deadwalker zombies. And because of it's just Gorslav's War Scroll, you will be able to bring half that unit of zombies back throughout the game. So it is 40. It doesn't mention the number there, but got that big 40 block, potentially just sitting on an objective and trying to hold it and being resilient, and then potentially bringing that unit back later in the game for a command point is pretty solid. The Crypt Horrors, it's like Crypt Horrors and Flayers, they were good like 2 years ago, but they've just outdated War Scrolls at this point. You look at like Deepkin, who's just got a new book, and the Reavers got rend. They went from 4s and 4s to 3s and 3s. Everything just slowly trends that way, and Flesh Eaters are obviously still a few years behind.
Still behind, yeah.
So it's like their profiles don't really inspire too much fear. But they're 2 damage attacks, 3 attacks each on those horrors. So you got 18 attacks in that unit. Actually doing 3 damage on, I think it's 6s to wound. So it's it's if you saw this list, you wouldn't innately be scared of it. I don't think I'm not innately scared of it, but obviously Bill being a great pilot, that there's no easy games where that's concerned. So
basically, if I saw anyone besides Bill running this list, I wouldn't be scared when I saw it. I'd want to pair up into it, but I know with Bill, it's gonna have some tricky connotations associated with it.
Yeah. Well, and just Bill's always great with movement and precision and all that. So yeah, just leveraging everything at the right moments is always key in AOS. And if you're able to do that, like having the big Deadwalker zombie, board is a potential screen where you're trying to get into him, you're hitting the zombies, and setting yourself up potentially to get counterattacked by a bunch of flailing hooligans, players, and horrors just running around. They do have the scream, so if you are low bravery on the flayers and the terrorgeist, that'll be doing some mortal wounds, which is solid. But yeah, otherwise not no big surprises. Obviously here the big difference is the allied zombies. He did take a double battle reg for his battalion, so he's 2 drops here. Predator's Domain is an interesting grand strategy. Obviously, super MSU, lots of speed in this army. I suspect it's potentially like just practice for Worlds, because Worlds we have to do all different grand strategies. We can't duplicate too much, so I don't know if he's just doing something different to practice for that. And Bloodthirsty Triumph is good for the reroll charge, especially think of something like the Blister Skin Teleport. Just be able to do that and have potentially multiple rerolls across the army in a turn. And yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Bill's he's gonna do well. Always does, but I'm very curious to see how he does with this list. I know they've all been talking about how bringing trash lists and whatnot. So
yeah,
it's gonna be fun to watch how all these guys do with the unique picks that they've made. Any other thoughts on the list or for Flesh Eaters?
It's just Bill.
It's very unassuming.
Very.
That's Yeah, it's crafted by a mastermind that I can't see through directly what the game plan is, but I know that there is one. So I'm excited to see it.
Or
Excited
he's
to see it.
or he's just messing with all of us, which is
Yeah, there
as
is
likely as
that
anything.
possibility. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely don't. I mean, U.S. team is crazy enough to take fleshier courts to Worlds. I would not put that past them. But I specifically meant using Predator's domain as a strategy is something that takes a lot of getting used to, even if you didn't do it with a different army. Yeah. Anyways, so those were our 3 flavor picks, and let's see, Carl, do you want to jump in and take us through your first sleeper pick?
Yeah.
The sleepers, just as a explanation, are lists that we think have the potential to do really well, maybe in the right situation or matchups that people may otherwise overlook.
Yeah, so my sleeper pick is Captain America himself, Jeremy Vessier. Vessier? I never know how to say his name properly. I'm sure you guys in chat will correct me, seeing as how half of you are Team America in there right now. So this is a list that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I love Caradron Overlords. I don't think they are the most competitive choice. Again, it's kind of like a running theme right now with all the lists of that we've been talking about. So I'm very interested to see what Jeremy does with this list. So it's very very low in terms of model count. He has 2 Archanaut frigates and an ironclad, so he's going to be very mobile, as well as gun hauler. Sorry, so he has 4 boats just flying high and dropping down pretty much anywhere on the board, and you know, taking objectives if he's able, but also putting all his force into one flank and being able to do that in a subsequent turn on another flank. So while he doesn't have very many models, it's a lot of output in a small amount of space. Of course, you have the Warp Lightning Vortex that can ruin people's armies. And he took 2 Storm Drake Guard. I heard they're good, so they're in there
Yeah.
to provide even more speed and sustainability.
Any army that, like, order army that can take them, I've seen them pop up in them in like recent events.
Yeah. So again, it's a catch me if you can list. That's kind of what I would classify as, where you're basically running around in circles, trying to avoid your opponent while seemingly blasting his whole army. The only thing that unfortunately KO struggles with at this point right now is stacking saves. Because most of their things are -1 rend. If you stack enough saves, they quite literally bounce off.
Yeah.
And so that's why the Storm Drake Guard are there, because you can do D6 mortal wounds.
Yeah, and they can KO historically suffers with like pushing stuff off of objectives. They can shoot it, but they're not generally moving onto it if
Very true.
they're zoned out. So throwing 10 bodies in that are pretty resilient is also great for that. So no surprise, Storm Drake Guard are good. And yeah.
I mean, I will say sorry, Zach, go ahead.
Oh no, I just said, who would have thunk it?
Yeah, I will say for the people who are giving Jeremy a little bit of a hard time in chat because he didn't take a trash list. I will say that he's Captain America. He has a little bit of dignity that he needs to hold on to, not like the rest of you degenerates out there. So
That's fired. All right. Yeah, Warp Lightning Vortex, always nasty. Kill that chemist if you can. But all I have to say about that.
yep.
Um,
If you can, he's 2 drop, so only 1 drop or 2 drop on a roll off. If you're able to do it, then that's a significant part of his list. But as we know, KO double is pretty horrendous.
it is.
Yeah, the movement that they have on the board in the game is pretty tremendous. And so it's just such a valuable tool. It always has been, but I think even more so now, and at the stage that we're in, being able to basically go almost wherever you want is extremely valuable. So
Nice. All right. So then we'll move on. Zach, go to your sleeper pick next.
yes, so mine is another local player named Matt. He's bringing a Cities of Sigmar Living Cities list. Not a traditional sleeper because it includes Stormcast models, and anything that can include Stormcast models now is pretty good. But it's not one that I've seen too often in our local meta. I know Carl ran it once, but he was kind of hindered in a certain way during a tournament, so he wasn't able to live up to its full capabilities. But in this list, he has a Rune Lord with Master of Magic, which lets him re-roll any casting rolls and unbinding rolls. Artifact is the Arcane Tome, extremely useful, valuable artifact. Cage of Thorns, another great spell. Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if the unit tries to charge another unit, they take D6 mortal wounds.
It's any move, so
Any
even a normal
move,
move.
okay, so even better. And then Curse obviously is just great. Then he has a Sorceress, Drilla Van Denst, who is an amazing model. I think a relatively slept on model, but can do tremendous output of damage, especially to wizards. So that will be
And demons.
cool on the table. And demons, yes.
Yeah.
And then I also always loved the attacking the endless spell. I always thought that was
I've never used it at all, ever.
you can use it against the, or Matt can use it against the vortex when it inevitably gets dropped on him by our previous list. Then just a couple screens of Dread Spears and Longbeards, and then the 30 Iron Drakes, which can pump out insane amounts of damage. Gotta get them in range, only 16-inch. Not not the longest range unit, but they can definitely do the damage, especially behind a couple of cheap screens with Unleash Hell. Just need to make sure they're a little bit more tightly packed in this case now, though, because of the change in the rules. A block of 20 Phoenix Guard is as almost efficient of wounds as you can get in the game. Their 4-up ward is incredible. And then with the save stacking, they can be really hard to move off any objective. And then what I think makes a list so strong is the Fulminators. So the Living City both allows you to include Stormcast units, then also set up units in reserve to come in off the board. Within outside of 9 inches and within 6 inches of the board. But then they also have the ability that after you shoot, you get to move, which is incredible for the Fulminators because obviously they have a shooting attack and they can just move up and basically sneak wherever they want and charge some of your most impactful units. And you have pretty little control over it unless you're guarding them as much as you can. If you're guarding them as much as you can, it can ruin your game plan in other places. So I really like that addition to the list. And Fulmineers can blow up basically anything they touch on the charge. There's very few things that can withstand that. So definitely a scary one for me. And then Emerald Life Swarm. So get the heals around wherever you can get them. Soul Scream Bridge, great tool to move the Iron Drakes in the position that you want. This is where Carl got kind of messed up in the one tournament. But Soul Scream Bridge, just amazing with the Iron Drakes. Effectively increases their range from 16 to a far greater range. It's all in a battle regiment, so it's going to be a 1-drop.
Yeah.
And then strategy Bastions of Hope, which is an interesting grand strategy.
Like Predator's Domain, but easier, or it's basically
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah, it would be a little bit easier if your opponent had faction terrain.
Yeah.
It counts as 3, so
Yeah.
you can just plop one unit near it.
Yeah, it's basically the exact same with the one little bonus potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, so overall, a pretty strong list, both in shooting and in melee, which can be hard to pair in some cases. So he has shooting, strong shooting. He has screens where he wants them. He has Phoenix Guard as the ultimate anvil. then Fulminators as the ultimate hammer that can
Hammer.
pop up anywhere. So
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good list.
and the tools to deliver them where they need to go. It's
Yep. I think the only thing that this list unfortunately falls down on, and it's a list that's near and dear to my heart because it's something that I would definitely play, is the one turn that you miscast Soul Scream Bridge.
yes.
That's the opportunity that you can have in the game, and you can perhaps beat Matt if that happens. But that's a 1 in 36 chance, and if you're banking on that, I'd take that. I'd take that chance every single time.
And you know what's actually kind of also great for this list? There's not a lot of insane casting armies coming to this tournament anymore that we used to see. We used to see a lot of Tzeentch and a lot of Lumineth, but those aren't there. So getting the Soul Scream Bridge off is more reliable than ever.
Yep.
yeah, we've seen obviously a huge drop in Lumineth. That's like really since the Stormcast book came out, and then we saw the change to Unleash Hell. Those both were not good for Lumineth.
No.
Nice, yeah. Cities of Sigmar, like Carl said, also action I know and love, and I actually played Cities of Sigmar, or sorry, Living City specifically, way back before it was any good, with a bunch of Sisters of the Watch before there were Sentinels that just embarrassed them. But yeah, strong list. Excited to see how it does. And then next up, for my own sleeper pick, you watch the channel, probably you know this list already. Another local player, Mitch, he's got a Maggotkin of Nurgle list. It is 2 War Scrolls, plus Royal Blight Lords. He's got 6 units. 5 of them are just min 2, and then 1 reinforced 4. 2 Lords of Affliction, 1 with Overpowering Stench and Split Horn Helm. And that's all wrapped up in a 1-drop battalion, the Rotbringer Assist. And he's got Hold the Line with all his battle line, and yeah, it's pretty nasty. So if you've seen the games that this was in last week from Ontario Masters, he was pretty effectively, able to pin and out damage and out body Yuri's Mega Gardens pretty effectively. And I think this list, while it does have some significant downsides and potential weaknesses, being that it like just goes all in on one kind of strategy, or one build. There's not much flexibility. It still is going to catch people out, and there are armies that just can't deal with it. It does get a 8-inch pre-game move. Then the plus girls move 8 inches in the hero phase, so it's moving 16 inches and then essentially charging you, bogging you down. There's just some armies that won't be able to get out of that, or won't realize that that's what it can do, and get kind of caught out. I don't know if have either of you guys had the chance to play against like this kind of a list yet.
Not at all.
Yeah. So
I have a lot of theories as how I would play it, but I haven't had the pleasure of playing a Fly Swarm yet.
So it's something. Obviously, I did end up playing it, and with Stormcast, I did have the damage. And the big thing in our matchup was giving away first and then winning every priority. Obviously, allowed me to kind of hit one unit and then hit the next, with like all of my stuff. Or
actually won priorities.
Yeah, I know. Strange, isn't it?
As odd.
Yeah, it got back to me at the next event where I lost them all in the final game that round. so I can't have any good without the immediate after effects. But yeah, again, all those plus goals are 8 wounds each, so 128 wounds in the army is solid. Lords of Affliction, or the General specifically, has a 4-up ward save. What does the Split Horn Helm do again? Do you guys remember?
It's the 4-up ward.
Okay, and then the Overpowering Stench
is the command ability stopping 7-inch aura.
Yes, that's huge. So units within 7 cannot issue command abilities, and units wholly within 7 cannot issue or receive So that was big in our game. Actually, not too huge. I was often able to like just be on the
The outside.
barely touching outside of 7, so I could like inspire or all out attack my fulminators. But even stuff like turn 1 when Mitch alphaed me, it meant I couldn't use inspiring presence on my judicators. Ended up losing a couple more to that. So that's something to definitely watch out for. Definitely got to keep track of which bud is the general when there's like 16 on the table. Might be hard to do, but yeah.
It's a great hyper aggressive wound soak army,
Yep.
which you don't see too often. Usually the wound soak armies, they get to the middle of the board and they just kind of stay there. These guys can get right up in your deployment and hold you there, which is huge. So tough one.
Yeah, for sure. And worth mentioning, Noah is grudging Mitch round 1, so nobody else is going to have to worry about this list in the first round. But we might face it later in the event, so they'll have a good match. Noah's playing his Trogs, so we'll see if the Trogs have the resilience and damage to fight off the bugs. But yeah, that's it. And we can jump into our podium picks, which are, I guess, our lists, not necessarily that, lists we're betting on to be successful. Have a really good shot at the podium. Obviously, nothing's ever guaranteed, especially 5 rounds. Matchups are big. Turn 2, 3 priorities dictate a lot of games right now in this edition. So anything could happen. But Carl, do you want to take us through your first podium pick?
Sure. My podium pick is Mr. Levon Shinava. So he's, been hammering at this list for quite some time. It's a list that he's refined through LVO. A couple local.
Carl,
Yep.
you ended up changing your pick. We had duplicate.
I did.
Yep.
I did. Oh shit. Okay. Let me talk about my change. I'm talking about Mr. Michael Grove.
Yeah.
I did forget. So let me
improvise there.
let me go ahead and talk about Mr. Michael Grove's list. Seraphon is the bane of my existence.
Oh god, yep.
It has so many tools to dig itself out of situations, and I think a build like this, Thunder Lizards, where it's taking quite a few skinks, is immensely powerful. Because of the -1 damage, each of those wounds on those skinks basically goes way further. So 30 skinks, 10 skinks, 10 skinks, 10 skinks, a whole host of heroes like the Skink Priest, the Skink Star Priest, the Star Master, no surprise there. Engine of the Gods, you can potentially summon even more Saurus Warriors throughout the game, and they benefit from the -1 damage. Stegodon with a Skink Chief to +1. Then you have a Bastiladon who double shoots. And then you have another Bastiladon, which you don't see very often with the Arc of Sotek. The melee version. It's 165 points.
I legitimately have never looked at that war scroll.
It's pretty doo-doo. But it is still the same defensive profile as the other one, where it's a 2-up save, unrendable at the beginning, -1 damage, and for 165 points, I'll take that for 5 bodies. Interestingly enough, it has a lot of attacks. I think it has 18 attacks at its top profile. So if it goes into the same target that is cursed, it does mortal wounds on hits of 6s, as well as wound rolls of 6s as well. So it could potentially do quite a few mortal wounds if that combo goes off, but I don't think that's what Mike is going on for here. I think that's just an added bonus if it does happen. But it's just a big soaking threat.
There's tons of value to that, like something that could tie up a Gargant or Marathi for a turn or two.
Or Stonehorn.
Interestingly enough, this is a point that Josh put in the chat as well. Because he has two monsters there, he could potentially run the Engine of the Gods, run the Bastiladon, and run the Skink Chief, and you still have the Bastildon with the Solar Engine able to shoot. Kind of traditionally, when you only have 3 monsters, you're unable to score Ferocious Advance
without
with
sacrificing one of them.
without sacrificing the shooting. And it also means that you can just slowly march him up the board, and you can potentially score Malicious Takeover later on, and then Savage Spearhead when he's far up the field. So it's a very, very interesting list. One that I do not want to play at all, but it's very good. So
Thunder Lizards, obviously reducing damage by 1 is insane. Really good. No surprise there. It's obviously we've seen Thunder Lizards recently, or for the past 3 years. Seraphon's been doing really well, but Thunder Lizards, I think, took like 4 or 5 events, like 1 or 2 weekends in a row recently, and
yep,
strong still.
It's very, very good.
Yep. Well, all right, Zach, you are next, and look at this list. Looks like we heard about this.
Yeah, it's only appropriate that Mr. Number 2 gets 2 introductions to his list. So Levon, great player, came second at LVO, if I remember correctly. And then the following tournament that we went to came second place in that one. I was just able to beat him out on strength of schedule. And then I believe he also came second at the Masters.
Yep. Yeah, he did.
Yep. So
Mr. Second.
He's Mr. Second. So at the very least, I'm banking on a middle podium for Levon here. Soul Blight, super strong me right now. It has a lot of power in multiple places. Belladama is great. She does a lot of very, very board impactful stuff. The Vengorian Lord is a speed racer, and has pretty strong abilities in the game. A set of 3 Deadwalker zombies, a 40, a 20, and a 60. Deadwalker zombies are extremely strong battle line. Like, when I saw them when they first came out, like, I knew immediately that they'd be powerful in multiple different ways. They're good wound soaks. They can come back to life, and then they can also put out not an insane amount of damage, but maybe a surprising amount of damage for their price point and also the role that they fulfill on the battlefield. Then he has a unit of 10 Dire Wolves. Great objective cappers and screeners. Fellbat, same thing. Great objective cap and screen. Corpse Cart with the Unholy Lodestone, and 5 Blood Knights, which are great damage dealers. And then, so he has a Warlord and a Vanguard for that. Strategy Hold the Line, so let's keep the battle line alive. With 120 zombies and then sparing wounds in other places as well. I think that's a very safe grand strat. And I know this was Carl's first choice, so I'll let him go a little bit deeper into it and give him a chance to go over some of the stuff that he likes in it.
Yeah. Yeah, just hold the line is just you basically would have to table Levon in order to deny that grand strategy. As well as Gorslav bringing back units, the grave sites bringing back units, Beldama messing with shooting, Blood Knights for fast, like you were saying, the Direwolves, the Fellbats, and even the Blood Knights are all fast objective grabbers. So I think this army kind of tries to be a 1-2 punch wave army, where the faster things come first and then the Deadwalker zombies come after. So it's a very, very appropriate list. And a lot of those spells that you're seeing on screen are debuffs. Just in case he runs into a big hammer unit that is there to kill him, he can potentially debuff them. And then big god monsters, he can also debuff them quite heavily. So a lot of redundancy as well in the list, which is something that I like. As well as the Corpse Cart for 80 points, +1 to cast, and vampires get rerolls. So his casting's not that bad actually. So yeah,
And
so much
Gorslav
more
is always a
refined.
great addition to the list. as well.
Yeah, 75 points CP just to bring it back.
As they already talked about how good he is with the zombies. Like a unit of 60, bringing back 30 for a command point. All right.
Yeah, and
Pretty
they're
Appreciate you.
deceptively fast, right?
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So auto running
6
them 6,
pile in and
yeah, 10, and then piling them in 6 means that their effective threat is 16. A lot of if you have a 8-inch moving unit and you're banking on average charges, you're only 15 inches. So this is even more than that. So
and it's borderline guaranteed, right? It's 10-inch move, and as long as they don't redeploy her, or if you're within range of 2 units, you're guaranteed to get in.
Yep.
So no charge rolled required.
Nope. I would love to see Roger's list play against this list.
Yes.
Well, I've played Levon twice with like this many zombies, and Stormcast has the damage to chew through them, but there's not, there's maybe what, one or two Stormcast players that really have the volume. I mean, Matt's list probably has the amount of damage, but
With Iron Drakes, yeah.
yeah, there's like probably only a couple armies that would have the output to kind of really chew through this army in a significant way. So
Yeah. It is 209 wounds, this list.
that's
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, and like Carl was saying, with all the debuffing going on as well, chewing through those wounds could be pretty difficult.
Yep.
Sure. Cool. Well, if there's nothing else to say, I will jump over to my podium pick for this, which was Team USA's Marcella. She is bringing the Daughters of Cain. Probably, I think this is by far her main army, or what I know her for most. See her play, so she's definitely to be super practiced with it. I recently, not even recently, I for a long time have loved Daughters of Cain. Recently got our army painted up, so I'm excited to. Actually, I think I'm playing it. The battle report I'm filming tomorrow with Noah, so that's going to be exciting. But I love Calebron. Great sub faction, obviously giving you the teleport for a command point. It's great for mobility and to be able to dance around and threaten battlefield objectives, as well as -1 hit for your entire army, which in the shooting meta is great. There are things like Sentinels that kind of get around it with doing the mortal wounds, but in general, it's like never hurts, right? Like think of anything that's shooting and having to, rather than using all out attack to get go to 2s, they're using all out attack to stay on 3s.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that for your whole army is super strong. In the army is Hag Queen. She's got the Melusai Iron Scale General, which is awesome because it lets the Blood Sisters, so the combat snakes, run in charge, and they run with 2d6. It is a command point to do that, so this list, this army is kind of command point hungry, being that Marathi Kane and the Shadow Queen also want to be using a command point turn to either fight or shoot in the hero phase. You're in combat with the Shadow Queen or Bloodstalkers, you're potentially doing it with them, or you're shooting with the Blood Sisters. You're on combat, then you're going to double shoot the Bloodstalkers, and of course a unit of 15 because they're just so good. And double shooting them is strong. You talked about like all the shooting that's in the game, and I still think Daughters of Cain is one of the strongest. Like, not pure mortal wounds like 30 Sentinels, but it outstrips them in damage overall with the double fire. Pretty easily outstrips them. And yeah, still doing a bunch of mortals. And unlike Stormcast, that they only get the once per game double shot, they get to do it potentially every turn. Oh, big strength there, obviously, with that shooting, if you can deal with it or shoot them down. We actually, exciting, talking about our Daughters of Cain army, to self-plug here. On Monday, we do have Cass's first game with the Daughters of Cain, playing against me with Techless and 30 Sentinels, which was a great match, so watch out for that on Monday. But otherwise, Battle Regiment, so 1 drop. Oh, 2 drops, because the Hag Queen's not in the Battle Regiment.
Yep.
And then the grand strategy is Predator's Domain. There are some you could go broken ranked or hold the line, but only 3 battle line. Tough to kill, fully eliminate both the Blood Sisters and Stalkers. Again, it could be just testing and practicing some different ones. You never know for Worlds. But Predator's Domain is something to keep an eye on, just for trying to deny that from your opponent. 2,000 points on the dot, so no potential at a triumph. Hard as a king. Oh, also 2 units of Life Takers. So these are the combat Canary, and they look like pretty unassuming units, but if they get buffed up with Marathi Kane, and then the Hag Queen, I don't know, but even just for Marathi with the spell that I can't think of the name of for the +1 rend on the charge and +1 damage,
Mind Razor.
Yeah, Mind Razor. Those little units of 5 can actually be pretty nuts.
Yeah, like just an amazing unit, a great unit to have in the list. Set up in reserve, can deep strike where you want them. Great at taking objectives. They can wipe similar point screens off objectives on the charge. It's just a really, really good couple of units.
And worth noting with that too, after they fight on a 4-up, I don't know if it's immediately or at the end of combat, they do move. It's immediate. Yeah, okay.
Immediately, yeah.
Yeah, so that's huge for, they're very squishy, but if you buff them up, they can be a little hit and run unit potentially. Be very annoying.
Yep.
Awesome. So, unless there's any other comments about this starters team list, we can jump back and we'll go through, talk about what we're playing this weekend, why we're playing it, a little bit about our lists, and I think we've talked about all our lists on the channel to some degree recently. But yeah, Carl, do you want to continue the trend and take us through yours first?
Sure. It's gonna be a list that's, I think, fairly familiar to the listeners, or those of you who tune into Season of War regularly. It's a list I've been devising basically after LVO, one that I wanted to elevate Kragnos to as high a level as possible, without taking him in ogres, because I think that's a pretty good spot for him to be in, and it stares you in the face quite it's obvious. So I wanted to take him in something else, and so I'm taking him in Crew Boys. So my list is Kragnos, a Snatch a Boss on Sludge Raker. So that's a change from my Masters list. Only 1 Swamp Caller Shaman, a unit of 9, and then a unit of 3 and 3 Bolt Boys. So 15 Bolt Boys overall. 20 Hobgrots and Rippus Snarlfangs. So just the changes in my list are the Sludge Raker, who gives extra damage on 6s to hit. And averagely, you get about the same amount of damage as what my previous list is. The Snatch Boss is much more punchy than the Mire Brute. It does much more mortals when it does go in. And of course, super sneaky with the Hoggrots is just so key as a screen. Unlimited board space screen just allows you to control melee armies and shooting armies that don't have 30-inch range shooting. You can control them quite well too. And then Kragnos is obviously a house. He can just solo an army if you allow him. If you take away the threats that can deal with him, and there's many, but not super popular in every single army. You probably only have 1 unit that can deal with him, and so the Bolt Boys are there to take that unit out, and so that Kragnos can run free, like the donkey boy he is. So that's my list. I don't want to give too much away. The only thing that I did struggle with is the grand strategy. I chose Hold the Line, but with 9/3/3 Bolt Boys, they're kind of like paper. And so it's gonna be tough for me to score that grand strategy in every single game. And based on how the tournament is scored, that might ultimately cost me. But we'll try our best.
Yeah, I know firsthand it is a scary army, so I will not underestimate it. again.
A lot of people do.
Yep.
Carl
Right.
was actually my sleeper pick, my very first sleeper
Yeah.
pick, unofficially, because it
Yeah.
is an unassuming army. Like once again, Cruel Boys, you don't expect to be near the top, especially when you have a 720 point monster chucked into it. But yeah, it's really good list.
Yep. And Zach, you have a similar piece in your army.
Crag Bros.
I
Crag Bros
do.
forever.
Crag Bros. So this is a list that Carl already covered in uh, his Cragnos video. What he is in the meta, but it's a list that I love a lot. I'm an ogre player at heart, and so being able to ogres have been pretty solid, but they've never been near the top. I feel like Kragnos can give them a little bump up there to kind of fight with the true champions. But to go over my list, I do have Kragnos, and then I have two Stonehorns. This is all in Boulder Head, so it gives my monsters an additional wound, but not to Kragnos. It also lets each one of them take a mount trait, but once again, not for Kragnos. He wouldn't be able to get one anyways. Um, and then my general is an Icebrow Hunter. He unlocks my 3 battle line units, which are 2 by 2 by 2 saber tusks. I love my monster mashes, so as much as I can get of them, I do. So they're there as they're actually really good screens, great objective takers. Uh, they play exactly the role that I need to. Back when Unleash Hell was a little bit more of a threat, they could come down with the hunter and eat up that first shot, because they get a +3 to charge when near the hunter. So um, yeah, it's as Carl said, a little bit more of an obvious list. Lots of charging going on from it. The 3d6 charge that it allows for the Stonehorns, and even some of the normal units, like even just the Icebrow Hunter or Firebelly that's in the list, um, allows them to get up there. So if getting even 6 mortal wounds and rolling 10 dice on average, or sorry, 6 are mortal wounds on 10 dice. It could be a couple mortal wounds, which could clear a screen if I need it or anything like that. Then, as I mentioned, I have the Fire Belly with Billowing Ash, so that's a -1 to hit spell, wholly within 12. Kind of provides a little bit of tech to an otherwise Zoom list, um, and gives me a little bit of protection when I think I might need it. Uh, Stonehorns hit like a truck, Kragnos hits like a truck. Stonehorns are extremely fast, 14 inches, 15 if the hunter is nearby with his command trait. And then a 3d6 charge means an effective range of 25 to 26 inches. So it's pretty hard to avoid them. Um, that's about it. Once again, I don't want to give too much of my list that isn't already extremely obvious,
Yeah.
but yeah, I love it. It's fast. It's great. I love rolling all the big ogre dice on the charge roll. That's always fun. So excited to play it. I brought it to the last room I went to in February and was able to take out the tournament with it. So uh, don't expect to do the same thing here, but hoping to perform relatively well.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Both you will be riding on Kragnos' back.
We're the only ones.
Yeah. Which is surprising because at that one day, or there were like 4 out of 20 players had Kragnos.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
4 or
That was
5 or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
yeah.
something
It's a
crazy.
lot.
So for myself, I am not taking Kragnos. I actually just had to look up my army list in the event to remember what I was taking. I'm playing Deepkin, but first off, just didn't honestly kind of over Lumineth right now in the meta. They're not too hot. I don't feel like the matchup well against Tarl, but that's not enough reason to take Lumineth. Um, and I'm just a little bit bored of Stormcast right now. So excited for the new book with Deepkin. This is the old book though still. So I also realized that I haven't played more than like maybe 3-4 games on the channel with Deepkin in AOS 3. And I haven't played them at all at events. So I thought I would pull out Deepkin, mix things up a little bit, and just have some fun with them. This was the army that I got into competitive play with. running Namarti core to some surprising success back in the day with 20 Reavers, 20 Thralls. So kind of bringing that back a little bit. I'm running for heroes. I have the Ishirin Tidecaster, who's my general, so I can flip tides. I am Futhon, obviously, because running charge turn 1 and attack first turn 2 is really good. Surprise. And then Steed of Tides for the spell there. I also have a Soul Scryer, who's just letting me Deep Strike, and brings 2 units with them and gives +3 to charge. Now, you'll notice in my army, pretty much everything I'm taking is like all the stuff that's going away in the new book, or all the weird janky combos and whatnot. So like the Soul Strider is going away, so I wanted to take a Soul Strider, or he's losing the +3, so I wanted to take him before he loses that. I'm taking the Eidolon of the Storm with the Cloud of Midnight, just as a stellar combo. +1 to Wound Aura, still gives +1 in shooting, really good. Still 18 inches, really good. And Cloud of Midnight, obviously, more than anything now, it's just to soak up Unleash Hell and keep me safe. And that's heroes. And then for my units, I have 20 Reavers, 20 Thralls, and a unit of 10 Thralls for Battle Line. So that's 50 bodies, but nothing too crazy. The Reavers, obviously, here are to be potentially running and shooting turn 1. So that's a 32-inch threat range. With, what is it, we'll be on, very easily on 2s, rerolling 1s and 2s. Yeah, so they'll be all right.
It's a tough list.
Yeah.
It's extremely consistent. I played against it at the tournament, and
With Nick, something
crap.
very similar. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Like you would think, oh, Unleash Hell, so you're on 3s now. It's like, nope, still on 2s.
Yeah.
Rerolling
Yeah.
1s. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of output. Surprising amounts of output in shooting.
Yes.
Which you don't expect as much from Deepkin.
Yeah.
No.
And well, if you played around, seeing have Deepkin players that have been playing it, they're probably been playing similar builds this edition. I drifted away just to other things. But anyways, I have then after that 20 Thralls and 10 Thralls, as I mentioned. Thralls are amazing. They're still going to be amazing in the new edition. They don't drop off at all. If anything, their stock has gone up. But they're just great. Again, the Namarti are some of my favorite models. Super cool. They can be little blenders against 1 wound stuff or stuff that is 3 or more wounds now. It's nice. And then finishing it off, I have 2 units of Ishlean Guard. Similarly, they're both going up in points. Actually, my entire list is going up 400 points after this event, so not viable at all. So yeah, the Ishlean Guard are pretty stellar. Great for any matchup with something that's you don't want to deal with. You either tank shooting or you throw them into a Guardant or whatever you want to tie up and not deal with right away. So they're great for that. And then finishing things off with a Leviathan, again, going up 120 points in the new book is changing a little bit.
Huge amount of points.
Yeah, so still does +1 to save, and that +1 save still affects the Ishlean in this edition, or in this book before the new one. So they'll potentially be on, instead of 4s, maybe 3s on the charge, they're to be on 3s, maybe 2s on the charge. So that's going to be pretty good. And the turtle does have reverberating carapace, bumping up that aura for his boy drum for all the buffs. Super handy. It also gives that +1 hit for the Namarti. Again, comboing super well with both the Thralls and the Reavers. There's a ton of fun synergy in this list, actually. I'm excited for it. It definitely has some counters. I see Roger in the chat. I wouldn't want to play Roger's army because it's all high save, does mortal wounds on impact. Don't know if I can chew through it fast enough. And then, it actually scares me with Deepkin. And it might just be also from the fact that I just haven't played this army much this edition. But excited to have some fun with them before everything changes. Last hurrah, so.
Yeah, I love the turtle. The turtle is
so cool.
Just a great unit. and yeah, it just looks awesome. Like just such a cool looking unit. I always happy to see one on the table. They're just awesome.
And that actually was a reason, like another reason for me to take this army when I honestly almost took Daughters of Cain or Iron Jaws, and I've never even played with them, played against them a ton, but I just wanted to do something different. But my Deepkin are probably by far my best painted army, so might be able to sneak some points or something there, or uh, but another reason to take them. Ah, that's me rambling about Deepkin, my list. I don't know, guys. Anything else? Final thoughts for the event coming up?
I guess I'll go first, like we've already been doing. It's going to be a strange event in terms of the caliber of player, but also the caliber of lists. We're not gonna see very much in terms of dragons from my cursory look of all the lists. There's not very many god models either. I don't believe Nagash shows up, or Kaon shows up once, and then me and Zach with Kragnos. Gotrek will just throw him in there, shows up once as well. But yeah, it's a diverse field, a lot of different armies, and yeah, I just look forward to playing. I guess this is going to be the first GT of this ITC season for all of us, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. It's another thing to point out is it is under 32 players, just under 32 players. So that means no guarantee of an actual 5-0. If the fates decide that it could just be a bunch of 4-1s, but yeah, it does mean that there is one true winner. There is one true 5-0 potentially, and hopefully in this case. So, out of all these relatively top players in North America, some of the top ITC players in Canada and some of the top ITC players in America, it will be, um, as Carl mentioned far earlier in the stream, it will be a very good uh, kind of measurement of who the champ is, and it'll be great to see who it is, and whoever does take it out definitely walks away with a pride prize for sure.
Do you guys know off the top of your heads? I'd have to double check the pack. What the first tiebreaker is, or
I believe
it's battle points because Josh is using the story like Du Bois. Yep.
correct. Yeah, where it's 25 for a win, 5 for your grand strat, and then 5 or 1 for each of your battle tactics in the game, scoring 35 in total. Yeah, so
It would be hilarious to see everyone on, not everyone obviously, but like no 5-0 and have just a bunch of 4-1s. Like
it's not impossible.
very
No, not
likely
at
because
all.
you think GT is like your round 5 matchup. It's often determined. It's so influential, so many times, right? And you just the person who wins the event it just got was the one who got the better matchup of the people who were going,
Yeah, who are banging up in the 4-4-0.
But now that's happening in round 4, and that 5-0 person still has to then like defend the title
Yep.
of the last undefeated person, which is always tough and lots of pressure. Um, I don't know. I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. More than anything, it'll be great to see all you guys, all our team, all our crew, in Southern Ontario, but as well, amazing to see uh, such an international presence coming up for this. Um, with Team America and a bunch of pals. So excited to see everyone. Excited to get games in, hang out, drink some beers as Jeremy has requested. Um, uh, and yeah, just have a great time. So looking forward to it overall.
Lots of fun.
Cool. Well, with that, I'm just going to say a big thank you to everyone for watching, hanging out and chat and making fun of us and each other. Always entertaining. Do look forward to seeing anyone that will be there at the event in 2 days. Pumped to see everybody. Um, Thank you guys so much for the support of the channel. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And if you want to know a step further, join the premium membership so that we can continue doing this for a long time to come. That's it, guys. Have a great night. Play some Warhammer. Have some fun. We'll see you soon in another battle report.
Bye. No, I'll see you in 5 seconds.
See you guys.